we are really excited tonight to have our first formal and official conversation about our move to our beautiful, incredible new building at Fort Lewis College. We have invited a distinguished guest, Dr. Jenni Trujillo, who's the Dean of Education. Next slide, Libby. And she's going to get us started tonight by talking about her hopes and expectations on behalf of the college for the move and for our presence there at Fort Lewis College. And then Dr. Trujillo might decide it's time to go home and cook dinner, and I will continue after that. So welcome, Dr. Trujillo.
Muchas gracias, Rebecca. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm Dr. Jenni Trujillo. I'm the Dean of the School of Education here at Fort Lewis, and we're just really excited. We recently had a joint faculty meeting between the School of Education as well as, which includes 14 different majors, including adventure education and teacher education. And given how closely in our school we work with our area schools, we're named as the point people to work with Animus. So I actually am going to serve as the point person at Fort Lewis College for educational endeavors, working closely with Rebecca, head of school, as well as the really talented faculty and staff that you have there at Animus, working with our professors. I want to say just a few words in welcoming tonight. First and foremost, I want to dar la bienvenida, bienvenidos. We want to say thank you, welcome. We're honored and excited to have you be a part of our campus, but we just want to orient many people who live in the area know of Fort Lewis. They might call it the Fort. We have some of your students already dual enrolled. I'll talk about that a little bit more, but I really just want to orient us to the notion of who we are at Fort Lewis today. So speaking on behalf, I am one of the 4 primary academic leaders of the school. And as a higher ed institution of close to 4,000 students, we do have a very distinct demographic population. We have about 60% of our students are first generation students, meaning that their parents did not, or their families did not attend college. So generally that means that oftentimes it's a lower socioeconomic background. In addition to that, we're very diverse of a college, not only socioeconomically, and Native American and Indigenous students, as well as Alaska Native tribes. It's over 180 students from all over the United States. Our biggest areas are New Mexico, Arizona, Oklahoma, but then as well as far away, like I said, as Alaska and other places. We have students that come from parts of the Navajo Nation, for example, where there's not running water, there is not electricity. We also have students who come from the suburbs in the Front Range of Denver. We have students from Connecticut, back east. We have wealthier students. We have, in terms of that population, largely more of a white population. We also have about 13% Hispanic Latinx students as well. So all that to say, it's a very diverse, beautiful, rich tapestry of a school. But because of our difficult past, as starting out as an Army fort, of course, that's why it's called Fort Lewis, having been originally located outside of Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Pagosa, if you don't know, is actually a Ute word that means place of water for healing. And then moved over to the Hesperus area, west of Durango here. And then when it became a high school in the agreement with the United States government, it's one of only 2 agreements in the entire United States that was honored, where our students who are Native American were guaranteed free education in perpetuity. And that's why Fort Lewis College offers a tuition waiver to Native American students. We've had to fight legally to keep that right with the government, but it is a legal agreement and it's one that should be honored. And so we are, due to our high numbers of Native American students, we are designated as a Native American serving non-tribal institution. So it's not just Native students that go there, but the cool thing that I always say about Fort Lewis is having students who've grown up in such distinct parts of the country, or even downtown Durango, here in with our Animas River, as your school is named, all across, people really learn from each other. It's such a great microcosm of society to really learn those interpersonal skills within and across that you're going to need in every job, in college, in grad school, in your occupation, whatever it is that you do. And Fort Lewis is such a great place for that to happen. So with that comes a lot of responsibility. We really focus on being good stewards of the land, because when we think about what was stolen, as we name it in our land acknowledgement that we begin all activities with at Fort Lewis, and we're hopeful that Animas will take that on as well. We are really careful about land. And so the fact that the land has been leased at the point of the college through co-location is something that we're all going to continue to grow and develop. Some of the great and exciting ideas we have are for collaborations that are going to be really mutually beneficial. Obviously, in my school, the School of Education, we have lots of ideas that came up from our talented teachers at Animas High School as well as my faculty. But from the sciences to the arts, the humanities, there's so many wonderful things that we're excited, especially for the opportunities around dual enrollment. But having a co-located high school, it does bring forward some things that we want to be creative, we want to explore, we want to enjoy, we want to engage, but we'll also be operating inside of some parameters in terms of higher education, which is why I did start with sharing, a little bit about our history. We're actually going through and having very courageous conversations about what it means to have been in Indian boarding school and the pain and trauma that brings forward, and having others who may know less about that come into our setting. We just want to always be really cognizant and respectful of our context. And so I think that there's going to be lots of commonalities when we look at your mission statement and Fort Lewis College. We see similar missions focused on accessibility and belonging and experiential learning. So we anticipate that we'll be great partners with each other. But being one of the deans, I don't know how much you know about a dean role. It does also fall to my purview to think about parameters that we would operate inside of. And so we have talked about things like, behavioral considerations within our educational agreement, that being co-located, of course, when students are working in their dual enrollment setting and attending college classes, and we do expect some fluidity, having opportunities in your beautiful, gorgeous new facility. But we are going to try for the safety of Animas High School students as well as Fort Lewis College students to have some strict boundaries around not having a presence in the housing area, obviously inside the dorms or on those grounds and that kind of area. So there will be some things that Rebecca and I will look toward in terms of keeping things safe for that. And some of the questions that have come up from the Fort Lewis students and some of our native students, just thinking about our background, there's been a little bit of misunderstanding because your school is so beautiful and new and modern, and that these things, that there's been a bit of questions. I would just name it because I think we should start this relationship in a collegial way, but also an honest way, where some of our Fort Lewis College students are saying, why did you pay for that building when we're, piled up 3 to a room? I don't know if you had heard that we, in our housing, we actually had not enough housing. And so students were actually at, instead of 2 to a room originally at the start of the school year, it was as much as 3 students to a room. So the housing crunch has greatly been felt on our campus, as it has all across our community, not only in La Plata County, but our surrounding areas as well. So we've developed a really great website to help answer some of those questions for the students. And we think that the more that we can organically grow these partnerships and get to know each other, the stronger the collaboration will be, and students will see. But they are having some questions in terms of, would their experience as college students change by having a high school on their campus? The state of Colorado pays for some of the things that fees go toward, like our Student Life Center. Our student fees also involve a lot of special programs. And so the college students are having some of those things on their mind. But I'm really working hard as a liaison with Rebecca and the staff, the great talented teachers there. We're really looking forward to welcoming your students. And actually, in some cases, it won't be new because we've had really a long-standing relationship. We've had student teachers at Animas High School. We've had collaboration with our chemistry department before. We've had opportunities for dual enrollment, and that's something that we really do want to grow. I am, as Dean of Education, it is in my purview to oversee the dual enrollment process. We do work with 14 area high schools, but with Animas being co-located on campus, we really think there's going to be some opportunities for that to stretch and grow in really innovative ways. So in essence, I just wanted to emphasize, we do share the key values of innovation and transformative learning. Fort Lewis is an awesome school, and sometimes people who live here have had more or less experiences with it. So we really want to emphasize that component and inclusivity. But because construction has now culminated in this fantastic building and your subsequent move, we want to incorporate knowledge sharing. We want to think about this in ways that is mutually beneficial for both Fort Lewis and Animas, and really the greater community. And we do hope that the Animas High School being co-located will really continue to foster a pathway for any a student who wants to move from the nest straight into flying over to be a skyhawk. I had a nice little visual to show, but you can just visualize that in your mind. Does anybody want to ask me a question about the co-location or anything that I've mentioned in terms of the parameters?
Well, I might. They probably have questions that I'm going to address with the slides.
Okay.
But if there are some very unique to Dr. Trujillo, please ask them. Oh, yeah. So we're getting into the details of like meal plans. So I can address that if that's okay. So Dr. Trujillo, thank you so very much for coming and helping us have a beautiful context for this opportunity that is so rare, so very rare. And I would like to start just by giving some gratitude to all the many people that persevered and had a lot of fortitude and vision to make this happen. Actually, Dr. Trujillo, I wonder if you can address a little bit about how long this has been in play. I think this has been in people's minds and hearts for much, much longer than building has been under construction.
Yeah.
So how did the origin of this happen?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because even on our website, we do talk about the fact that in 2020, you got the BEST grant, but even long before that, to my understanding, it's been about 12 years that this has been a dream with Animas High School to be co-located there on the campus. So there were hardworking people on your board, some of the earlier leadership of Fort Lewis College, including one who's still there, Steve Schwartz, who's our chief finance officer, had some deep involvement in that. And it was imagined, how could this be brought to fruition? And, given that state land, often involves capital construction and some really complicated things that even require legislative approval, it's really exciting and amazing that it is the kind of institution that will be willing to be innovative and cut through red tape. So yes, there's many people in your community of Animas who've had a long-standing desire to see this happen. And we really think that by cooperating, in terms of an educational community, we have a preschool on our campus, very young children as young as age 1, all the way up through graduate education. We have 5 graduate programs. Some people don't know that. And so bringing in a high school really allows us to think in a more holistic way about education on the whole. So you're right, Rebecca, there's been several years. And I think in earnest, certainly in 2020, I know when I came on board, I got to know Sean and came into the process a bit late, but that seed sure had been planted sometime back. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So the origin of this idea predates both Dr. Trujillo and myself, but we're both so excited about it. So Libby, if you'll do the slide, please. First, announcing some key dates. December 16th is the day that we're actually moving. If you were to come to the school now, you'll be seeing a lot of boxes. So we're slowly starting to pack up, move the boxes to the commons, and then we'll have a moving company move them up the hill. So we will start on January 3rd with students there. That'll be their first time to access the building. And then the ribbon cutting ceremony is the 20th of January at 5:30 p.m. Of course, everybody is welcome. I would also emphasize that on January 3rd, we're going to start the day on an abbreviated schedule. So we'll have a breakfast, and anybody who would like to come, parents and whomever, to see the building would be welcomed at that time. So here are some of the most exciting, just physical components of the building. We have an we're going to be expanding our music program and our makerspace program. We have an audio lab, which is kind of state of the art, and we'll be able to do podcasts and other recordings for music. And the makerspace, Dave, do you want to say something about that space?
Yeah, sure. I can chime in on that. By the way, good evening, everybody. Thanks for hopping on and spending some time with us, catching up and having a conversation. Yeah, there's been a great deal of development on the Maker Lab. We've got a lot of new equipment coming in. We've got a CNC router table coming in, and we've got a 48 by 48 laser cutter that actually has a different series of heads that can be put on it that can do a variety of biaxial milling, which I'm very excited about. We've got some new 3D printers coming, band saws, all kinds of really great stuff. That's going to be, we're going to start putting that stuff in there next week, in 2 weeks. And it's going to open up an entirely new avenue of learning, I believe, with our students, because we're going to have new types of equipment experiences and design programs that are going to really, I think, blow away our students' minds once they get in there. And some welding is going to happen as well. And I'm reaching out to community partners to come in with their expertise to start supplementing some of the programming we're doing there. And so, yeah, I'm excited, by all means, very excited to get that Maker Lab up and running.
Yeah, and we're looking at some workforce certificates as we grow that program that students could earn through the makerspace, construction being one of them. We also have, if you've spent much time here, we have couches in the hallways, crowded classrooms, not a lot of natural light. I'm sure this was a mecca in its day coming from the strip mall, but this is a very beautiful and respectful and inspirational space for learning. Students can have breakout rooms, they can have quiet spaces to learn. The classrooms are really large and comfortable with incredible views. And we also have sustainable design for the solar power that's on the roof. So the space is just such a treat and such a gift. And I again want to emphasize my gratitude for Jesse Hutt and Jeff King and Sean, who was the head of school before. The president of the college, Dr. Stridicus, of course, Dr. Trujillo, and just people that have really persevered, Christine Imming, over a long period of time to make this happen. There was nothing easy about it, but it's beautiful to see it come into our lives. So go ahead, Libby. We have also we're excited for some new dual enrollment opportunities. Juniors and seniors who've shown academic readiness by succeeding in their core classes and who have the stamina and maturity to take elective credits at FLC will be encouraged to do so. And we're beginning to build those costs into our budget in the future. So we would really like to see our students get college credit while co-locating up there, if they're ready. But our expectations for our students are not different in terms of having respectful behavior. And I think Dr. Trujillo kind of lined that out differently. It is a different place. We need to understand and have empathy for the culture, the land, and the history, to know it and get to know it well, which is something we're going to do together. And when we talk about respectful behavior, it's not just at our school, but obviously on the campus of Fort Lewis, being aware of others, and being aware of your presence and how that might be perceived by others, and just being, confident but careful. We have a policy that students, Animas High School students, are allowed on the campus when they're with a teacher through a class, an Animas High School teacher, so they'll be together, or if they're enrolled in a dual enrollment class. So if they have a purpose for being on there that's clear and educational, yes, they should. Otherwise, we're not encouraging kids and not allowing kids during school hours to be on campus. As Dr. Trujillo said, many of the facilities were paid for with student fees. We're not trying to overrun or take a priority over other students on campus. We're there for an educational purpose. It's not our new home to just wander around. So the policy about lunch and open and closed campus remains. So our seniors have open campus for lunch, but they're not allowed to just go wander over to the student union. They'll have wherever they take their lunch, they can do it in town as long as they get back in time. And our juniors, what we've always done is after Link, which is a very, it's an internship that goes on for several weeks. And after that, we consider them, mature enough to actually leave the campus for lunch. And that has been long standing, and that continues to be how we will operate up at the campus. As Dr. Trujillo mentioned, absolutely positively no visits to the property of the dorms, and certainly not inside the door. That could be grounds for suspension. That's just not an option in any way for our students. So also after school, unless they have an educational purpose, they should head on home. So if you haven't gotten the message here, they are always welcome on our campus during school hours and after school hours. But the Fort Lewis campus is accessible to them for educational purposes only. Okay. And obviously dual credit, they're going to learn a lot more about the campus and maybe even one day, attend Fort Lewis College, which is another reason why, our mission is about 100% of our students apply to college and are accepted to at least one college. Of course, the numbers of students who actually go are less than that, but the more access you have and the more familiarity one might have with college, the easier and less threatening or intimidating that kind of experience will be. So what else do I want to say about this? Some other things that I wanted to say, you can make the slide go, Libby. Parking and transportation. The bus service from 9R will continue. That is not changing. That will continue this year. Next year, that needs to be negotiated with the school district. If looks like they may be changing some policies around that, so we will be figuring that out in the next semester. Our students will need to have parking permits, as will our staff. They're allowed 2 permits and then pay for anything after that. They're not allowed to park on the campus of Fort Lewis College. They have a limited parking up there, and there's always a need for more parking. Tickets are something like $25. And also Fort Lewis students aren't allowed to camp on our parking lot. Camp, what am I saying? They're not allowed to park on our parking lot. And so that's why we're going to have permits so that we can see which cars are in our lot. We are also, as far as snow days go, we'll be continuing to follow 9R's lead, because they get up early and figure out how the roads and the conditions are. We will communicate with you by email through Infinite Campus, as well as posting on our website and on Facebook pages. There are occasions, I'm told, that Fort Lewis cancels school because of weather and 9R does not, in which case we'll have to make an assessment at that time to see what that means for us. And so we will communicate in the same way. But if 9R cancels school for weather, we will be canceling school for weather. Go ahead, Libby. So, oh gosh, we're already at the last slide. I guess I want to mention a few other things. We've had conversations with the catering department up there about whether or not there'll be an option, not every day, but some days, to bring food from there to our school. We don't have a firm response on that yet, but the question has been asked to see if that's a possibility. I also have met with the police department up there, and they will come by sometimes. They will certainly drive by when they can. The SROs from Durango 9R, as well as the Fort Lewis police, are going to do a walkthrough of the building next week, just so they know the lay of the land. So we're all on the same page about that. If you have, if you'd like to have a conversation about this in person, we do have a parent coffee coming up on Monday at 8:30. We do that here. It's from 8:30 to 9:30, and we can certainly have a conversation about that at that time. But I'm guessing there might be some questions for the good of the cause. If you have something that you feel the whole people that are on this call would benefit from knowing about, please ask. If it's something personal about your own student, I would prefer that you either email or come to the coffee on Monday. What questions do y'all have?
Rebecca, this is Jenny. Could I just add something? And please feel free to call me Jenny. Just a couple of things in terms of that closed campus. I do want to emphasize, the big welcome, and that caution is really, it is going to include curated experiences. We've already thought of adventure education students working with Animas High School students for some of the X Block opportunities. So there's a lot, there will be interaction. It's just that we want, especially in our first foray, as we get to know each other this spring semester, that we have those opportunities occur in a curated fashion. And then the other thing about the snow days, Rebecca, we rarely, I don't know if people on this call ever know the story that the Fine Arts building at Fort Lewis College actually caved in. The roof fell in the 1990s. We rarely ever call off school because almost 60% of our students live on campus. And so, but if that happens where 9R is closed, and you're following the 9R calendar, one thing to note is that front hill with all the switchbacks, that quite often closes in bad weather. So that's just something, because it gets very icy. Yeah.
Right. No, that's a good point. Does our audience here have any questions for the good of the cause, or do you feel like you have enough information to start? We will, this audio recorded meeting will be played to your student here at school next Wednesday when we do advisory. So they will, with their advisor, hear this and have the same information that you have. Okay, Carly, looks like you have a question.
Yeah, is there a particular traffic flow pattern that you guys have outlined or are working on that you want us to follow for drop off and pickup? There's just a few different ways to the campus and it's a lot more traffic up there. So I didn't know if there was sort of a plan we should be looking at for that or not.
Well, that conversation we have not had yet because we're not up on the campus. So I'm sure that once we get up there, we'll communicate that information. We have not talked about asking our students or our families to take a different route to the college. They should know there are several ways to access it. So we'll make that public in case people don't know. And obviously for the things like that icy hill. But no, when we met with the police chief, that was not a conversation that we had.
Okay.
Yeah. Greg, I see you have a question.
Yes. You talked about some of the policy regarding Animas High School students, being on the Fort Lewis campus. Can you address what the college is doing in terms of policy for the college students and the Animas High School building?
I don't anticipate we're going to have college students certainly parking in our parking lot. And if they come over, they would come over by invitation. We have, one entryway into the main building, and it's a vestibule. So everybody that comes through, we're aware of them because they have to be buzzed in, basically. So, and we know all of our students, who they are, what they look like. If we see somebody that we have a question about, well, that we don't know has been invited for any reason, then we will address that person. But I don't know that they need a policy for our building. Jenny, do you want to address that at all?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, my internet froze for a minute. I think the question was around the safety of Animas students and the Fort Lewis College students. So any student, if there's a project, we actually have a requirement of a background check because of working with minors. That's common in the School of Education. So if we have joint projects, that will be the case. But in the same manner that we're asking that the Animas High School students not be in the dormitories, things like that, the same policy exists for Fort Lewis College students, that they would be there engaging with Animas High School students and teachers in a curated way, a project that we're doing together. And we do anticipate a bunch of these really exciting creative things, but it will always be a supervised opportunity. So they also have been told not to be, it's a closed campus. They're not to be on the Animas High School campus either, unless it's through invitation and something that we're jointly working on together.
Thank you.
Thanks. I did want to add to Carly's question about the traffic flow. This is one of the big questions that the students are asking at the Fort Lewis side. Like, there's going to be a traffic jam going up to the college. It's not. At one time, we almost had 5,000 students that attended Fort Lewis. So bringing in, the few hundred from Animas, we don't anticipate impacting our traffic flow. Actually, your start time is off hours of, we either start at 8 a.m. and then 9:05 are the two start times. And so we anticipate no issues with that. I would say the typical way up the campus is the front hill. I'd say that's probably a more direct path to Animas High School up there. And be aware that if there are traffic incidents, it's not security officers, it's police officers. So any speeding or traffic stuff that happens, it is an actual ticket, not like a college ticket of some kind. So I would say the front hill is the best if it's not snowing.
Any other questions? Gretchen? Gretchen, I see you raised your hand. What is your question? Maybe your microphone. Oh, I think your microphone is off. Yes. Gretchen, we can't hear you. Okay. Maybe she needs to chat that question or write it in the chat. Do we have other folks that would like to chime in? Okay, well, this was much quicker and easier than I anticipated. I'm sure if you know of family members that, oh, Gretchen is saying she can't work her microphone. Gretchen, if you'd like to write your question in the chat, we can pick it up that way. Oh, will lunch change? No, lunch hour will not change. The hour will be the same. And we're looking at the possibility of maybe having some food from the catering up there brought over, but not every day. So until we get that final answer, I can't tell you exactly what the menu is going to be, but we're going to be keeping the favorite lunch items of our students. We know what they like, so we're not going to dispense with things that they love. Shay has left the meeting. Okay, Gretchen, you're welcome. Okay, so once again, I will be available in person 8:30 Monday morning here on campus to talk some more about this if you'd like. I also am pretty good at answering emails, so feel free to do that. We will be communicating through the Nest, the News for the Nest, on a regular basis with those updates. If you would like to share anything you've learned with other parents who haven't made it, that would be great. I think I just saw a flash of a question about the hub bus and it went away. Can you ask that question again?
I can read it for you if you'd like,
Okay.
Rebecca. It
Sure.
says, it's from Carly Van Hoff, and it's saying, I understand the future of the hub bus depends on 9R, but would just like to strongly encourage we try to find a way to continue bus service with 9R. It will pose a major challenge to working parents otherwise, which affects inclusivity.
Yes, I mean, we couldn't agree more, right? This is a top priority for us. And it wouldn't have, if that changes, it would affect Mountain Middle School as well. So I've had more than one conversation with the superintendent there, and we will continue to talk. And we're also looking at some other avenues for transporting students. But we agree, we somehow, some way, we will figure out how to do the same sort of service that we do right now. All right, everybody. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight. and we'll keep communicating. Look for our communications. And once again, I just want to express our gratitude to Fort Lewis College, to Jenni Trujillo, and all the people that made this possible. It's a gift that will make a big difference in our educational experience. So thank you and have a nice evening. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.